Hi, dear leaders. I'm coming at you with a Monday afternoon announcement because I just can't fit it in properly to leaders meeting and have us still get through all the other things that we need to do tomorrow morning. So here is the announcement. First of all, we are going to be studying People of the Promised Land Part 2 next year, and it's titled A Kingdom Divided. I want to read a little bit about the study for you here. In our study, People of the Promised Land, Kingdom Divided, we will start with a reminder of Israel's important role in God's plan and review how Solomon ended his reign in costly compromise. The nation split into two kingdoms, Israel and Judah. As God's people persisted in rebellion, his passionate call for their undivided loyalty as his covenant people continued. God sent prophet after prophet with a call for repentance and consistent warnings of judgment if people failed to forsake their idols and return to him. This amazing new study is going to include the following books: First and Second Kings, Second Chronicles, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, and Zephaniah, all of which are situated where they fit in Israel's storyline. The study of Isaiah is also folded into a 4-week segment in here. And finally, new to our BSF study content is Jeremiah and Lamentations. So this is what you have to look forward to. Now, as you know, this is a time of year where we ask you to pray about whether God is calling you out of leadership for next year, not this year, but next year. I have an announcement now that I want to follow up with to give you more information about what leadership is going to look like next year, so that as you pray, you know what to pray for. Then I'm going to give you 1 week to pray. I'm going to email a link tomorrow that has a Google form for each leader to fill out about your intentions, whether you're staying in or whether God is calling you out of leadership for next year. I'm asking that you fill this Google form out when you get it by next Thursday. That's March 10th, so that the staff can plan for leadership needs for next year. All right. So, as you know, we have been really, really flexible in BSF since COVID hit. For a while, we were online only. Then this year, we've been a hybrid class with both in-person and online groups. Plus, we have 2 leaders meeting. We have one at 6 a.m. on Tuesday mornings and one at 9 a.m. I am so thankful that God allowed us to do both this year. As we've gone, though, BSF headquarters has been following us and every other class across the globe, watching us navigate all the needs that both online and in-person leaders have. And what they've seen and what I see is that nothing can be done with excellence if we try to do everything. So they have told me that this will be the last year they will allow me to have 2 leaders meetings, the online one, first thing in the morning, and then the 9 a.m. one. I must return back to the 9 a.m. meeting. At first, I was bewildered by this, as I imagine some of you are now, especially those leaders that it affects. But as BSF began to describe to me what they have to offer online leaders, I became so excited. Now, I want to bring up 2 things here. If you are a children's leader or an administrative leader or an in-person group leader, this is all just information for you that won't affect you, but it will affect your friends in leadership and maybe some of your friends in online groups. So that's why I'm sending it out to all of you. BSF's told me they're not saying that the online leaders meeting is over. It's just that I am not going to be able to lead both leaders meetings next year because, as you know, online leaders have different needs than in-person leaders. Training needs to be different. Fellowships need to be different. Timing is different. And so BSF has launched something called Distant Online Leaders Meetings. These meetings have a trainer who gives a doctrine talk each week, goes through the lesson with her group of leaders, and trains them specifically for what they need. They have their own fellowships. But this trainer is not a teaching leader. She never writes a lecture. She just writes a doctrine talk each week. So then the groups, the online groups, whether they meet morning, noon, or night, would each still get a lecture from an actual teaching leader. It's just the trainer who would be different. This trainer is going to specialize in whatever these GLs need. Some of the group leaders may want to train online because they work, they can't make it at 9 a.m., or maybe it just fits better with their schedule to be online. But then some of them may want to lead in-person groups in their homes or satellite discussion groups, right? Which are multiple groups that meet in one place, like meet in a church each week. But other group leaders may find that they just want to lead full-time on Zoom. Because the distance online trainer doesn't have to write a lecture each week or deliver it or oversee a children's program or two, she can give each GL what is needed to make each group excellent. Additionally, the Distant Online Leaders Meeting is going to help BSF spread to more rural places with women who long to do the study but just can't drive to class. And it's multiplying leaders in rural settings all across the world right now. When only a couple of leaders from one place can drive to an in-person leaders meeting, it can cap out a satellite discussion group because there are only ever a couple of women who have the time to drive. But if you go to a distant online leaders meeting, you can keep adding leaders because they don't have to make the trip to Iowa City each week. This will allow for much more growth. It's also exciting because I have found this year that I am not able to give all of you what you need. I have too many irons in the fire. So next year, the early morning leaders meeting won't exist the way that it does now. It may end up that there is a morning leaders meeting at the very same time, but I won't be leading that one. The other issue is for those of you who are in person on Tuesday mornings, but leading online groups, you'll have a choice to make. If you're going to lead an online group, you are going to have to attend the distance online leaders meeting, not the in-person leaders meeting. So you can come back to our base class and you can be a leader on Tuesdays for leaders meeting and Thursdays in person, or you can again go join that distant online leaders meeting. The other issue that I cannot ignore is that this year our Thursday morning Zoom groups have gutted our volunteer base for our children's programs. We had no idea that this would happen, but it has not been good for our class. We used to have 13 to 15 in-person groups on Thursday mornings. Now we have 9, which means that those groups have to volunteer twice as much as they used to in the children's program, which means 6 to 8 times a year per group this year. It is causing problems. So next year, BSF will still offer Zoom groups in the morning again, and all times throughout the week, but those leaders will need to be a part of the distant online leaders meeting to get the proper training that they need. And also so our in-person class can begin to rebuild a base of women who will serve, and we won't have to call on the same people to volunteer over and over and over again. I just gave you a lot of information, some of which is going to change things for you, but I wanted you to hear it from me. I also want to ask you to pray that God will call the distant online trainer and her assistant from our class, This will help keep the chemistry of the Iowa City leaders together when they meet in that distant online leaders meeting, and it will allow members of those groups to still continue receiving the lecture from our class each week. Now, you've got a lot to pray about. First of all, you all need to be asking God if He is calling you back into leadership next year in BSF, or if He's calling you out. This is the main question. If He does want you to be a leader, then you've got to ask Him, is it in person or is it online? But if you cannot, oh, I just lost my place. I'm sorry. If He asks you to be a leader, but He's asking you to be online, then I just want to say you can trust Him. I know it's scary to think about having someone else lead you, but I promise that it will be good. And you will get much, much better training from whoever God calls into that distant online training position than you would from me. And finally, I'm just asking all of you to pray for our class. Our school program is exciting. I believe that the homeschoolers are going to come out in force next year, and our class is going to grow. This new study that we're going to have is going to bring women back who've been away. So please pray. First of all, that God would protect our class and our unity. But secondly, please pray that God will provide the leaders we need so that we can continue forward serving the women in our base class, but also the women who want to remain online. Thanks, you guys. I will be available tomorrow morning to answer any of your questions. I'm sure you will have some. I love you so, so much. Have a good night.